Your phone buzzes at 4:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in March. You grab it off the nightstand, half asleep, expecting another early morning estimate request. Instead, it is a text from your foreman, Marcus. "Boss, the lumberyard just called. They are cancelling our standing order, all of it, cedar, pressure-treated, everything. Said their supplier pulled out and they cannot fill commercial accounts until further notice." You sit up in bed. Your stomach drops. You have 11 jobs on the schedule this week. 11 families waiting for their fences. 4 of those jobs start tomorrow. You have already collected deposits totaling $43,000. The materials for those jobs, the posts, the rails, the pickets, the concrete, the hardware, were supposed to be staged and ready at the yard by 6 a.m. And now there is nothing. This is a $250,000 week sitting in your pipeline, and it is about to collapse because a single supplier decided to evaporate overnight. Your crews are going to show up at 7 expecting to work. Your customers are going to expect progress photos by noon. Your bank account, which was finally starting to breathe after 18 months of grinding, is about to suffocate again. You do not know it yet, but the next 72 hours will determine whether your fence company survives or becomes another statistic. Another contractor who scaled too fast, trusted the wrong people, and watched it all come apart in a single week. But that is not the only crisis heading your way this month. There is a lawsuit coming too, and a key employee who is about to walk out your door with half your institutional knowledge. March is going to test everything you have built. But we will get there. First, let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment you decided that building fences for other people was going to be your entire life. It started, like most things in this industry start, with a truck, a post hole digger, and exactly $1,200 of credit at Home Depot. You were 26. You had been working for a general contractor for 3 years, framing houses, pouring concrete, hanging drywall, whatever they needed. $42 an hour as a sub, no benefits, no stability. Every winter was a gamble. Every slow month meant burning through your savings. You watched your boss, a guy who could barely read a blueprint, drive a brand new F350 while you nursed a 2009 Tacoma with 187,000 miles on the odometer and a check engine light that had been glowing since Obama's second term. The fence thing happened almost by accident. A neighbor asked if you could replace his rotting cedar fence, 6-foot privacy, maybe 180 linear feet around the backyard. He had gotten quotes from 3 fence companies. The cheapest was $14,200. He offered you $8,000 if you could do it on weekends. You did the math on the back of a gas station receipt. Materials would run you about $3,800. Posts, concrete, rails, pickets, screws, a couple of new saw blades. That left $4,200 in labor. 3 weekends of work, maybe 4. Over $1,000 a day. That night you could not sleep. You kept running the numbers. If one fence took you 3 weekends and netted $4,200, what would happen if you did 2 a month? 3. What if you got fast enough to do 1 a week? What if you had a helper? 2 helpers? A whole crew? The math was intoxicating. And unlike framing houses for someone else at $42 an hour, this math had no ceiling. You said yes to the neighbor the next morning. Rented a 2-man auger from United Rentals for $187 a day. Bought the lumber with your Home Depot card. And on a Saturday in April, you dug your first post hole as a business owner. Here is what nobody tells you about digging post holes. It is not hard, but It is humbling. Every single hole teaches you something about the ground you're working in. Clay that grabs the auger and will not let go. Rock that sends vibrations up your arms until your teeth rattle. Roots from a tree you cannot even see. Thick, gnarly fingers of oak or maple reaching 20 feet from the trunk. Sand that collapses the moment you pull the auger out, leaving you with a shallow cone instead of a clean cylinder. Each property is its own puzzle. Each yard is a conversation with the earth. And you either learn to listen or you burn time and money fighting it. That first fence took you 4 weekends, not 3. You hit a water line on the second Saturday. Your own fault. You did not call 811 for utility marking. That cost you $600 in repair fees and a full day waiting for the utility company to come out, assess the damage, and give you clearance to continue. You learned. You set 2 posts slightly offline because you did not run a mason's string properly, eyeballed it instead. You tore them out and reset them, cursing yourself for 3 hours of wasted work. You learned that too. But when it was done, when you stood in that neighbor's backyard on a Sunday evening and looked at 180 feet of straight, level, golden cedar fence with a perfect lattice top, something happened inside your chest. Something primal and satisfying in a way that no paycheck from someone else had ever felt. This was yours. Every board, every post, every clean, tight joint. You built it. Not for a boss, not for a company, for yourself. The neighbor's wife cried. Actually, cried. Said it was the most beautiful thing anyone had ever built for them in 30 years of home ownership. She took photos and posted them to her neighborhood Facebook group that night with the caption, "If you need a fence, call this man." By Monday morning, you had 6 messages in your inbox asking for quotes. And just like that, you were in business. That first summer, you did everything yourself. Every estimate, every material run, every hole, every board, every cleanup, every invoice. You worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week, and occasionally 7 when deadlines pushed. Your girlfriend at the time, who is now your wife, God bless her patience, saw you for approximately 45 minutes each evening before you passed out on the couch with sawdust still in your hair. You completed 9 fences in that first summer. Total revenue, $68,000. After materials, fuel, equipment rental, and insurance, you cleared about $31,000 in profit. Let me give you some context on those numbers. The fence installation industry in the United States is a market worth over $20 billion in 2026, with more than 315,000 businesses competing for work. The residential segment alone accounts for nearly 65% of all fence installation revenue. A solo operator clearing $30,000 in their first summer is actually solid. Not spectacular, but solid. The industry average profit margin runs between 25 and 40% of total project value. Your first year, you were operating at about 45% gross margin, which sounds great until you realize that you were paying yourself roughly $18 an hour when you divided profit by hours worked. Less than you made as a sub for that general contractor. But here is the thing about owning it. When you work for someone else, $18 an hour is all there is. It has a ceiling made of concrete. When you own it, $18 an hour is the floor you're building up from. Every fence you build makes the next one faster. Every mistake you make, and you made plenty, teaches you something that saves you money for the rest of your career. The mistakes that first summer were educational and expensive. You underquoted a 300-foot ranch rail job because you measured the perimeter with a wheel and did not account for grade changes. The fence followed the contour of a hill, which meant stepping panels every 8 feet to maintain level, which meant more posts, more angle cuts, more time. You ate 2,200 on that one and still delivered a beautiful fence because your name was on it. You took a deposit from a customer and ordered cedar pickets for a 6-foot privacy fence, then found out during installation that the HOA only allowed 48-inch fences in rear yards. Nobody told you. You did not ask. The customer blamed you because you were the professional. You had to eat the material difference and rebuild at the shorter height. Another 1,400 gone, plus 2 days of labor. You set posts in a rainstorm because you were behind schedule and the customer was getting impatient. And the concrete never cured properly because the post holes filled with water faster than you could pour. 3 weeks later, 2 posts shifted visibly, 3/4 of an inch off plumb. You had to dig them up, reset them in dry conditions, and reattach 3 panels. No charge, no choice. Your reputation could not absorb crooked posts. Every one of those mistakes cost you money. Every one of them also etched something permanent into your brain that you would never, ever forget. By the end of that first summer, your process was airtight. You called 811 every single time, even for jobs that seemed obvious. You verified HOA requirements before you quoted, not after. You never set posts in standing water. You built weather days into every timeline. You measured grade with a level, not with your eyes. These seem like small things. They are not. In the fence business, small things are everything. 1 crooked post, 1 missed utility line, 1 HOA violation, 1 underquoted job. Any single one of those can turn a profitable week into a loss, can turn a happy customer into a lawsuit. And that lawsuit I mentioned earlier, it is still coming. Year 7. We will get there. But first, you need to grow. By the end of your first full year in business, you had completed 27 fences and generated $196,000 in revenue. You were doing well. Really well, actually, for a solo operator in year 1. But you were also destroying your body. Your lower back screamed at you every morning before your feet even hit the floor. Your hands were calloused leather. You had lost 15 pounds, not the good kind, because you were too exhausted to eat properly and too wired to sleep normally. Something had to change. You either needed to hire help or accept that this was as big as the business would ever get. 196,000, a wrecked body, and an increasingly frustrated wife. You hired your first employee in February of your second year. His name was Darnell, 22 years old, built like a linebacker, had been doing landscaping for a company that paid him $15 an hour with no room to grow. You offered him $22, plus the chance to learn a real trade that would be relevant for the rest of his life. He said yes before you finished the sentence. Darnell was good, strong, showed up on time every single morning, did not complain about weather or heavy lifting. But he was not a fence builder, not yet. That first month with an employee was chaos. You were used to doing everything a certain way, your way. Having someone else there meant explaining things you had never put into words before. How do you explain that a post needs to feel right when you tamp the concrete around it? That there is a point where the concrete is packed tight enough that the post stops shifting when you push it, and that is the moment you stop tamping. How do you teach someone the difference between level enough and actually level? How do you transfer 3 years of hard-won muscle memory to a person who has never held a post level in their life? You cannot. Not in words. You demonstrate. You correct. You let them make small mistakes, ones that cost minutes, not hours, and catch them before they become big ones. And slowly, painfully slowly, they start to get it. Their hands develop the same instincts yours did. Their eyes start seeing plumb without checking. Their pace quickens. By month 3, Darnell could set posts on his own. By month 6, he could frame and attach panels. By month 9, he could run a section of fence from layout to finish while you worked on the other end of the same property. Your output doubled almost overnight. Revenue in year 2, $387,000. Net profit after payroll, materials, insurance and overhead, $112,000. For the first time in your life, you were making 6 figures, and it was not salary. It was not someone else deciding what you were worth. It was the direct mathematical result of every decision you had made for 20 months straight. You bought a new truck, not brand new, a 2016 Ram 2500 with 38,000 miles and a clean Carfax. But it was yours, bought with cash from a business account, no monthly payments. You put your company name on the doors, had a local guy wrap it, simple, clean design. Your phone number in bold. A logo your cousin designed, licensed and insured underneath. The day you drove that truck to a job site for the first time, with your company name 3 feet tall on each door, you felt something you had never felt before. Legitimacy. You were not a guy with a pickup anymore. You were a company. A real company that people could trust. Here is something nobody teaches you when you start a fence business. Actually, nobody teaches you most things. The trades have an apprenticeship culture that moves information through osmosis rather than instruction. But this one is particularly painful. You will undercharge for at least your entire first year, probably longer. And you will not realize how badly until you sit down and do the real math. In the fence industry in 2026, the national average cost to install a wood privacy fence runs between $25 and $40 per linear foot, fully installed. Vinyl runs $30 to $60 per foot. Chain link is cheaper at $15 to $25 per foot. Aluminum ornamental, $30 to $60. These are what homeowners pay at market rates. Now here is the breakdown that most new contractors do not understand. Materials typically account for 50 to 65% of the total job cost. Labor and overhead consume 35 to 50%. Within that labor portion, you need to cover not just the hourly wage you pay your crew, but also payroll taxes, 7.65% employer FICA contribution, workers' compensation insurance, $14,000 or more per year, vehicle expenses, fuel, averaging $600 to $900 per month per truck, tool replacement, figure $3,000 to $5,000 annually as bits break, saws wear out, and levels get dropped from tailgates. Marketing, phone bills, software subscriptions, accounting, and, this is the one everybody forgets, your own salary. Your own salary. The thing you are supposed to be earning. The reason you left your last job. Many new fence contractors forget to price their own time into jobs because they think profit equals their paycheck. It does not. Profit is what is left after you pay yourself a fair market wage. If you would pay someone else $35 an hour to do your job, then $35 an hour needs to be in your pricing model as a cost, not pulled from the profit column. When you started, you were pricing against the big fence companies in your market. You saw their quotes, $14,000, $16,000, $18,000 for standard 6-foot privacy fences, and you thought, I can beat that. I have lower overhead. I do not have an office. I do not have a sales team. I can offer the same quality at a lower price and win on volume. And you did win on volume. Your phone rang constantly. Your schedule was booked. You were busy every single day. But you did not win on profit. The problem with undercutting is that it becomes your identity. People know you as the affordable guy. They refer you to their friends as this guy who does great work for way less than the big companies. And suddenly, you are locked into a price point that does not grow with your costs. And your costs always grow. Materials inflate. Insurance climbs. Gas goes up. You give Darnell a raise because he deserves it. But your prices stay the same because your customers expect them to. The revelation came 18 months in, during a job that should have been straightforward. A customer wanted 250 linear feet of 6-foot cedar privacy fence with a custom arched gate. You quoted $9,800, about $37 per foot including the gate, which at the time felt fair. Materials came to $5,100. Labor for you and Darnell, 3 full days, came to about $2,800 when you factored in hourly equivalents. That left $1,900 in gross profit. But then the reality of field work happened. You hit solid rock at 18 inches in the back corner of the yard. Needed a jackhammer rental. $280 for the day. Customer wanted the gate to swing outward instead of inward, which required a different frame geometry and heavier hinges. 2 extra hours of fabrication. The cedar supplier shorted you 16 pickets in your delivery, which meant another trip to the yard, 45 minutes of drive time, and 89 in materials plus the fuel. And on the last day, it rained for 3 hours, starting at noon. You sat in your truck and waited, unpaid, unproductive, watching water pool in the post holes you had prepared that morning. Final actual profit on that job? $743. For 3.5 days of work with 2 people, $743. That is $106 per day per person. That is less than minimum wage when you factor in the 6 hours of unpaid estimate time, material runs, and customer communication that surrounded the job. That night, you sat at your kitchen table with a calculator and a legal pad, and worked backward from what you actually needed. If you wanted to clear $150,000 a year in owner profit, not unreasonable for a business owner working 60-hour weeks with $500,000 at risk, you needed to net roughly $3,000 per job on average, completing 1 job per week. That meant your pricing needed to be $42 to $50 per foot minimum for standard cedar, depending on terrain and complexity, not $37. The next day, you raised your prices by 18% across the board. You expected to lose customers, You steeled yourself for the awkward conversations. You rehearsed your justification in the mirror. You did lose some. 3 people in the first month told you they found someone cheaper. Good, you thought. Let them. Let someone else discover what 37 per foot really costs when the ground fights back, the weather does not cooperate, and the lumber yard shorts your order. The customers who stayed, the ones who valued quality and reliability over the lowest possible number, turned out to be better customers in every single way. They trusted your judgment on materials. They did not micromanage your crew's lunch breaks. They paid their invoices on time without follow-up. They referred friends who also did not shop on price alone. Your revenue dipped for exactly 1 month. Then it recovered. Then it grew. And your profit margin jumped from 22% to 34% overnight. By year 3, you had 3 employees. Darnell, now your lead installer and the best fence builder you had ever seen. A second installer named James. And a part-time helper who handled material staging and job site cleanup. You were running 2 jobs simultaneously most weeks. 1 crew led by Darnell, 1 that you led yourself. Revenue hit $580,000 that year. Net profit, $148,000. Those numbers look great from the outside. From the inside, year 3 was the hardest year yet. Harder than the first year. Harder than being alone and exhausted and broke. 3 employees means 3 sets of problems you never anticipated. Workers' compensation insurance alone was costing you $14,000 a year, and that was with a clean safety record. Payroll taxes, another $26,000. You needed a bigger truck for the second crew. $1,200 a month lease payment because you could not afford to buy outright. Tools were disappearing from job sites at a rate that made you want to install GPS trackers on every single drill and saw. And the customers. The customers changed when you were no longer the one on every job site. When it was just you building fences, customer management was effortless. You showed up, you did excellent work, you cleaned up meticulously, you left. The quality spoke for itself because you controlled every nail. Now you had crews representing you on jobs where you were not physically present. Not everyone on your crews shared your obsessive standard, not because they were bad people, but because it is your name on that truck. It is your reputation on Google. Nobody else feels that weight the way you do. James was competent, but sloppy on details. His fences were straight and structurally sound, but his cleanup was atrocious. Sawdust everywhere, concrete splatter on customers' patios that hardened into permanent stains, scrap lumber tossed in flower beds instead of hauled away, cigarette butts ground into mulch, a tracking of mud across a freshly sealed driveway. You got a 1-star Google review because of a pile of scrap James left behind a customer's garage. The review said, "Messy work, would not recommend." 5 words, 1 star. 3 years of reputation building threatened by 1 careless afternoon. That review cost you sleep for a week. In a local service business built on trust and word of mouth, 1 bad review is worth 10 good ones. People do not research the 97 positive reviews. They zoom in on the 3 negative ones and imagine the worst. You called the customer personally, apologized without excuses, sent Darnell over the next morning to clean everything up immaculately and touch up the paint on their garage where a board had scraped it during debris removal. The customer appreciated the response and updated to 3 stars, not 5, but better than 1. You sat James down the next morning before the first job started, told him that cleanup was not optional, that it was not a favor to the customer, that the job was not done when the last board went up. The job was done when the customer's property looked better than it did before your truck pulled into the driveway. He nodded, said he understood completely. 2 weeks later, different customer, same problem. Scrap in the yard, concrete dust on outdoor furniture. The customer's kid stepped on a roofing nail that had fallen out of James's tool belt. You fired James on a Thursday afternoon. It was the hardest conversation you had in 3 years of business. Not because you were angry, though you were, but because firing him meant you were back to 2 crews maximum, and your schedule was booked 3 weeks out. 11 families waiting. Sound familiar? That number keeps coming up. We are getting closer to that Tuesday morning, but not yet. After James, you made a decision that would define the next phase of your business. You were not going to hire another warm body and hope they shared your standards. You were going to build a system, a real, written, trainable system that would survive beyond any single person and produce consistent results regardless of who was holding the hammer. You spent 3 weeks. 3 weeks where you should have been building fences, where every day cost you potential revenue, writing down everything you knew, every step of every process. How to measure a property correctly, start at the house, work outward, note every grade change, mark every gate location, photograph everything. How to identify utility markings and what each color means. How to calculate material quantities with a 10% waste factor for straight runs and 15% for jobs with lots of corners and cuts. How to set a string line properly. Start with 2 corner posts set perfectly. Pull the line taut at both top and bottom, and never trust your eyes when you have string available. How to space posts on 8-foot centers for standard panels versus 6-foot centers for heavy materials or high wind areas. How to mix concrete to the right consistency, wet enough to flow around the post, dry enough to support it without bracing, within 20 minutes. How to plumb a post and verify it from 2 perpendicular angles. How to attach rails with the correct fastener pattern. How to space pickets for a privacy fence, 0 gap, butted tight, versus a shadow box, pickets on alternating sides with 1-inch overlap. How to hang a gate so it swings without dragging, shimming hinges, adjusting stops, testing clearance with a business card. 47 pages, single-spaced, with photos from your own job sites showing right and wrong examples side by side. You called it your operations manual. Darnell called it the Bible. And when your next hire picked it up and started reading, he said something that validated every hour you spent writing it. This is better than anything I ever got at my last company. They just threw me on a crew and told me to figure it out. You also built a pricing system. No more guessing, no more napkin math on the drive home. You created a spreadsheet that calculated every job based on linear footage, material type, terrain difficulty, flat, moderate slope, steep soil, rocky soil, number of gates, number of corners, access difficulty, drive distance from your warehouse, and current material pricing updated monthly. The spreadsheet factored in a minimum 15% net profit margin above all costs, always, every single time, non-negotiable. The number the spreadsheet produced was the number you quoted, period. No more 743 jobs. No more hoping it works out after the fact. Math does not hope. Math does not get surprised by rock or rain. Math knows. With the system in place, Year 4 felt different. The chaos that characterized Year 3 was replaced by rhythm, predictability. Your crews knew exactly what was expected because it was written down. Your estimates were accurate because the math was proven. Your customers were happy because consistency replaced variability. You hired 2 new installers that year. Carlos, who had 5 years of experience with another fence company before they went under, and a younger guy named Tyler, who had 0 construction experience but showed up to the interview with a notebook full of questions about the job. You gave Tyler the manual on day 1. He read it cover to cover over the weekend and came back Monday with 12 questions that were actually good, thoughtful, the kind of questions that showed he was thinking about the work, not just executing steps. Revenue in Year 4, $843,000. 4 full-time installers. 2 crews running simultaneously 5 days a week. Net profit, $189,000. You were approaching the magical $1 million mark, and you were doing it with a system, not with heroics, not by working until midnight or setting posts in the rain, by building a machine that worked whether or not you are physically present on the job site. Let me ask you something. At what point does a business stop being a job and start being an asset? When does it cross from something you do to something you own? The answer is when it can function without you. When you can take a Tuesday off and the fences still get built straight. When you can take a week-long vacation and come back to discover that everything ran fine, maybe even better, because nobody was looking over anyone's shoulder. Year 4 was when your fence company became an asset, not because of the revenue, because of the system underneath it. In Year 5, you made a bet that would double your revenue and nearly break you in the process. You leased your first commercial space, a 2,400 square foot warehouse in an industrial park on the east side of town. Metal walls, concrete floor, a small front office with a bathroom that made gas station restrooms look luxurious. Rent, $2,800 per month. A new fixed cost that had to be covered whether you built 1 fence or 50. But the warehouse changed everything. Instead of staging materials at job sites, which meant multiple trips and wasted hours, or at your house, your HOA had been sending increasingly aggressive letters about the lumber pile in your driveway, you could receive bulk deliveries on pallets. You negotiated volume pricing with a new lumber supplier, cedar at $2.10 per board foot instead of $2.75 retail. A 24% savings that went directly to your bottom line on every single job. Pressure-treated posts at $8.40 each instead of $12. Concrete at $4.20 per 80-pound bag in pallet quantities instead of $6.50 at the hardware store. Those savings added up to roughly $42,000 a year in reduced material costs alone. The warehouse paid for itself in rent within 4 months. You also hired Stephanie as a dedicated sales estimator. She had spent 6 years with a roofing company and knew the rhythms of home services sales better than you ever would. She knew how to walk a property, spot potential complications before they became expensive surprises, and close a deal without overselling. Her close rate was 42%, well above the industry average of 30%. With Stephanie selling and your crews installing, the bottleneck shifted. It was no longer about finding customers or doing work. It was about finding enough qualified work to keep your now larger operation fed. That is when you decided to chase commercial contracts. And that decision, that single strategic move, changed everything about your business, for better and for worse. A single commercial perimeter fence contract for a warehouse, a distribution center, a school campus, a municipal park could be worth $50,000 to $200,000. One contract equaling 2 or 3 months of residential revenue. The numbers were magnetic. Your first commercial bid went out in September. A new distribution center needed 2,400 linear feet of 8-foot commercial-grade chain link with 3-strand barbed wire top. The general contractor wanted completion in 3 weeks from start. You bid $127,000 based on your pricing model, padded 8% for unknowns because you had never done a job this large. You won it, and immediately realized you had entered a completely different world. Commercial work is not residential work with bigger numbers. It is an entirely different business. The general contractor controls your schedule, not you. If the concrete flatwork crew runs behind, your start date moves, with no compensation for the delay. If electricians need access to your fence line for underground conduit, you work around them, or you sit idle. If the site inspector finds a drainage issue near your post line, everything stops until it is engineered and resolved. Your residential crews had never worked with barbed wire. Darnell nearly sliced his forearm open the second day when a strand recoiled during stretching. You spent $1,200 on specialized safety equipment, Kevlar sleeves, face shields, heavy-duty leather gloves, that you did not know you would need until blood was involved. The specs called for commercial-grade terminal posts, set in 30-inch deep footings with 12-inch diameter holes. Your residential 2-man auger could not reach that depth in the compacted fill at the construction site. You rented a skid steer with an auger attachment at $450 per day for 9 days. But you finished. 3 days ahead of schedule, actually, because once your crew adapted to the rhythm of chain link, which goes up dramatically faster than wood once the posts are set, they moved at a pace you had never seen before. The GC was impressed enough to pay your invoice within 14 days. In commercial construction, where 60 to 90-day payment terms are standard, 14 days is practically a love letter. 2 weeks later, they called about another project. Year 5, final revenue, $1.14 million. You crossed the $1 million mark. Net profit after everything, payroll, materials, insurance, trucks, warehouse, advertising, accounting, legal, software, $213,000. $1 million fence company, built in 5 years. From a rented auger and $1,200 of Home Depot credit. Now, let us talk about what happens when you grow fast. Because growth has a cost, and sometimes that cost accumulates in silence until it comes due all at once. By year 6, you are running 4 crews simultaneously, handling both residential and commercial work, employing 9 full-time people plus 2 seasonal helpers during peak months. Your monthly overhead, the number that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., was $67,000 before a single fence board got nailed up. That is $67,000 per month just to exist as a company. Payroll, $38,000. Insurance, liability, auto, workers' comp, $7,200. Truck payments and fuel, $8,400. warehouse lease, $2,800. Tools and equipment replacement, $2,100. Marketing, $3,200. Accounting, legal, software, $2,800. Miscellaneous, $2,500. $67,000 every 30 days, rain or shine, busy or slow. And here is the thing about the fence business that nobody talks about publicly, that nobody puts in the glossy marketing materials or the Start a Fence Company YouTube videos. It is brutally seasonal. In most of the United States, your peak production months are April through October. November through March, work slows to a crawl. Frozen ground means no post-hole digging. Snow cover means no outdoor work. Customers do not think about their fences when it is 20 degrees outside and their backyard is buried under 6 inches of white. But your overhead does not hibernate. Your employees need paychecks 12 months a year, or they leave for companies that can provide them. Your insurance premiums do not pause from November to March. Your truck payments continue, regardless of whether the trucks are moving. Your warehouse lease does not have a slow season discount. You learned this lesson in the most expensive way possible in January of year 6. Revenue that month, $41,000. Overhead, $67,000. Cash deficit, $26,000. You covered it with the line of credit you had opened the previous year. $100,000 revolving, secured against your equipment. February was worse. $34,000 in revenue. March was marginally better as early spring estimates started converting. $52,000. By the time April hit and work picked up again, you were $73,000 into your credit line. You spent the entire summer, what should have been your most profitable months, clawing back that debt. Every profitable job went toward paying down the balance. Every dollar that should have been profit or reinvestment was debt repayment. You did not take a real paycheck for 6 weeks. Your wife started looking at job listings, not for herself, for you, just in case. This is the trap of the seasonal service business. You scale up for peak demand, then hemorrhage cash during the slow months. The bigger your operation, the more you bleed when work stops. It is a problem that compounds year over year until you either solve it permanently or it solves you. But the seasonality crisis was solvable. You took on more commercial work, which runs year-round because indoor site prep continues regardless of weather. You offered winter installation discounts, 15% off any fence booked between November and February for customers willing to wait for the first thaw. You diversified into snow season work, temporary construction fencing, event barriers, commercial security gates that could be installed under covered conditions. The deeper problem, the one you could not see gathering on the horizon, was the supply chain. While you were focused on cash flow management, something else was happening in the background, something that would hit much harder than a slow January. Your primary lumber supplier, the one you had built your entire operation around for 5 years, the one who gave you volume pricing and priority delivery, was struggling. You heard rumors from other contractors, drivers quitting, orders delayed by a day, then 2 days, then a full week. Quality slipping, more warped boards, more wet lumber that would shrink and gap after installation. You called your rep, a guy named Bill who you had known since year 1. He said everything was fine, just some logistic stuff, working through it, you'll barely notice. He was either lying or deluded, and in 3 months, you would find out which. Which brings us back to that Tuesday morning in March. 4:47 a.m. Marcus texts you about the supplier cancelling your standing order. Everything gone. You call the lumber yard at 5:30 a.m. The owner, Phil, picks up on the first ring. His voice sounds like he has not slept in days. "I am sorry," he says. "I tried to hold it together, but my main wholesaler pulled out. They are consolidating their client base, only serving accounts doing over 5 million a year now. I don't have that volume. Never did." 5 million. Phil's entire annual revenue is maybe 3 million on a good year. "What about your secondary suppliers?" you ask. "Out of Cedar completely, have been for 2 weeks. I was filling your orders from my emergency reserve stock, but it is gone now. I have nothing." You hang up, stare at the ceiling in the dark. Your wife stirs beside you, but does not wake. 11 jobs on the schedule. 247,000 in your pipeline for the next 14 days. 4 jobs starting tomorrow morning. Deposits collected. Contracts signed. Crews ready. Materials, 0. Let us pause here. Let us talk about what this moment actually feels like from the inside. Because from the outside, looking at this as a business problem, it seems solvable. Find another supplier. Pay more for rush delivery. Source materials elsewhere. Problem, solution, done. But the fence business does not work that way. Fence-grade lumber is not something you order online with 2-day shipping. Commercial-grade cedar needs to be specific dimensions, true 6 by 6 posts, not 5.5 by 5.5 nominal. 4 by 4 intermediate posts. 2 by 4 rails cut to exact lengths. 1 by 6 pickets milled to consistent thickness. All of it needs to be kiln-dried to proper moisture content so it does not warp, twist, or shrink after installation. All of it needs to be straight enough to actually build with, because a warped picket is not just ugly, it creates a gap that defeats the purpose of a privacy fence. Your nearest viable alternative supplier, one that carries commercial quantities of fence-grade lumber, is 110 miles away. They can fill your order, but delivery takes 7 business days minimum. Not tomorrow, not this week. 7 days. 4 jobs starting in 16 hours. Customers who moved their patio furniture and trimmed their shrubs and told their neighbors the fence is finally happening. Then your phone rings. Mrs. Henderson, the sweet retired couple whose fence is one of tomorrow's 4 starts. We just wanted to confirm everything is still on track. We are so excited. Harold already moved the garden shed. Everything is on track, you hear yourself say. Crew will be there first thing in the morning. The weight of that statement sits on your chest like a bag of Quikrete. What happens in the next 4 hours is the most intensely creative problem-solving of your professional life. By 6 a.m., you have called every building material supplier within 150 miles. Most are not open yet. The ones with emergency contact numbers either do not carry fence-grade lumber or cannot deliver before Friday at the earliest. One place in a town you have never heard of has cedar posts, but only 8-footers, and you need 10s. At 6:15, you remember something, a name, Reggie. A guy who runs a decking company 3 towns over. You met him 18 months ago at a contractor's networking breakfast, exchanged business cards, and never followed up. Reggie buys enormous quantities of premium cedar for deck projects. Different dimensions than fence lumber, but the raw material is compatible. Cedar is cedar. You can rip it, plane it, make it work. You find Reggie's card in the junk drawer. Call him at 6:22 a.m. He answers on the third ring, clearly just waking up. "Reggie, it is from... we met at the chamber breakfast last year. I have an emergency. Do you have cedar in stock right now, in your warehouse?" He does. Not as much as you need for all 11 jobs, but enough for 2, maybe 3. He quotes you a price per board foot that is 30% above what Phil was charging. You do not negotiate. You do not ask for a discount. You do not even hesitate. "I will have my truck at your warehouse by 8 a.m. Can you have it staged and ready to load?" Reggie says yes, and just like that, you have materials for this week's most urgent jobs. Not ideal materials, not your preferred dimensions, but workable, buildable, better than nothing by a factor of infinity. But you are still short on posts. 6x6, 10-foot cedar posts, the backbone of every privacy fence. You need at least 90 of them for the remaining jobs. Reggie does not stock anything that heavy. Nobody nearby does. At 7:15 a.m., you are scrolling through Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and every contractor supply group you belong to. And buried in a 2-week-old listing, you find it. A fence company 2 hours north that went bankrupt 3 months ago is liquidating their remaining material inventory. 200 cedar posts, various sizes, stored in a climate-controlled unit, listed at 50 cents on the dollar. The listing contact is the former owner's wife. You call. She answers cautiously, probably expecting another lowball offer. You tell her you will take everything, all 200 posts, cash, today. "I can have 4,200 cash in your hand by noon, if the posts are what you described." She says they are. Clean, dry, never installed. Her husband bought them before the bankruptcy hit, and they've been sitting in storage, collecting $200 a month in rental fees ever since. She just wants them gone. You call Marcus at 7:30. "Here is the plan for today. Crew 1 takes the Henderson job and the Matsumoto job. Use Reggie's materials. I'm picking them up now. They will be at the warehouse by 8:30. Get them loaded and staged for both sites. Crew 2 takes today's chain link commercial repair on industrial. That material has been on the trailer since last Thursday. Crews 3 and 4 get a paid day off today. I need 48 hours to source the rest." Marcus does not ask for explanations or details. He just executes. This is why you pay him $34 an hour and trust him with your company name. By 8:45, your truck is loaded with cedar from Reggie's shop. By 9 o'clock, Crew 1 is headed to the Henderson property. By noon, you are standing in a storage unit 2 hours north, inspecting posts that turn out to be better quality than anything Phil ever sold you. Straight, dry, clean. Premium grade that was probably overkill for standard residential fence, but will make beautiful, lasting installations. By 5 p.m. Tuesday, you have enough material secured between Reggie's stock, the liquidation purchase, and an emergency order from a national chain's contractor desk to cover 9 of your 11 jobs this week and next. The remaining 2 get pushed 7 days, when the 110-mile-away supplier delivers. That evening, you call every single affected customer personally. Not a text, not an automated email. A phone call, voice to voice. You explain honestly that your primary material supplier experienced an unexpected closure, and you are working to secure replacement sources. You apologize for any delay. You offer a 5% discount on their total project cost as good faith compensation for the schedule disruption. 9 of 11 customers respond with some version of, "Honestly, these things happen. We appreciate you calling us directly instead of just ghosting." 2 are visibly annoyed but accept the discount. Nobody cancels, not a single one. You saved it. The cost? $6,200 in material premiums above your normal rates. $450 in emergency delivery fees. A full day of your time driving instead of managing, and approximately 5 years of lifespan burned in cortisol and adrenaline. But you saved it. Every job completed, every customer served, every deposit honored. That week taught you the single most important operational lesson in running any contracting business. Never depend on a single source for anything critical. In the months that followed, you methodically built redundancy into your supply chain. 4 material sources, each with different strengths. A new primary supplier, a regional lumber company 45 minutes away with competitive pricing for your volume level and reliable weekly delivery schedules. Reggie's Company, premium materials at premium prices, but available same day when urgency demands it. The relationship you built during the crisis became a permanent backup. A national home improvement chain's commercial contractor desk. Higher standard pricing, but virtually unlimited stock of common materials and guaranteed next business day delivery anywhere in your metro area. A composite and vinyl specialty supplier, because the crisis also taught you that material diversification was not just a supply chain strategy, but a business strategy. Customers who wanted vinyl or composite could get it from you now, expanding your serviceable market. You also began stockpiling strategic inventory in your warehouse. 2 weeks' worth of the most commonly used items, standard posts in both sizes, bags of concrete, galvanized hardware, gate kits, post caps, always on hand, rotating stock, insurance against the next disruption. This redundancy costs money. Higher average material costs because volume is split across suppliers. Carrying costs on warehouse inventory. The physical space those stockpiled materials occupy. But you have never missed a job start since. Not once. In all the years since that Tuesday morning, no supply chain issue has forced you to call a customer with bad news. That reliability is worth every penny of the premium. If you thought the supply crisis was the worst thing that could happen to your fence company, let me introduce you to American litigation. Because in your 7th year of operation, you got sued for $24,000 over 14 inches of fence placement. Here is how it happened, step by step, so you understand exactly how something this stupid can threaten your entire business. A homeowner in a newer subdivision, a woman named Karen, yes, really, hired you to install a 6-foot cedar privacy fence along the back and both sides of her property. Standard residential job. 310 linear feet total. Your crew completed it in 3 days. The customer paid in full, same day as completion. Left you a glowing 5-star review. Case closed. Done. Except 6 weeks later, you receive a certified letter from an attorney. The neighbor behind Karen's property, a man who had been in a property line dispute with Karen for years before you ever existed, had commissioned a professional survey after seeing the fence go up. His claim? Your fence encroaches 14 inches onto his property along 110 linear feet of shared boundary. He wants the fence removed, the ground restored to original condition. and $24,000 in damages, including his survey costs, attorney fees, and emotional distress from having his property violated. 14 inches, less than the length of your forearm. Here is what actually happened. Karen told your estimator where her property line was. She pointed to a row of old metal stakes in the ground near the back boundary that she said were placed by a surveyor when we bought the house. Your crew measured from those stakes, set the fence 6 inches inside them, which is standard practice and required by most municipal codes, and built the fence. Textbook. Those stakes were not survey markers. They were landscape edging anchors from a garden border the previous homeowner installed 15 years ago. The actual property line, as determined by the neighbor's new survey, was 20 inches further into Karen's yard than those stakes indicated. Your fence is 14 inches over the line, built with the best of intentions, using the best information available, following industry standard practice. And now, you are named in a lawsuit alongside Karen. Why you? Because you are a licensed, insured contractor. You have visible assets. You have a policy that will respond to claims. The neighbor's attorney sees a deep pocket, or at least a pocket attached to an insurance company. Your general liability insurer assigns a defense attorney. The case enters discovery. 5 months of depositions, document exchanges, site inspections, expert opinions on reasonable standard of care for fence contractors in your jurisdiction. 5 months, during which you cannot fully concentrate on your business, because every time a legal-sized envelope arrives in your mailbox, your heart rate doubles. You second-guess every job. You lie awake wondering if the post you said today will generate a lawsuit next month. The stress affects your marriage, your sleep, your health. The case settles for $11,200, paid by your insurance company, plus your $5,000 deductible, plus $3,800 in labor and materials to physically move the fence to the correct property line. Digging up set posts and resetting them is harder than installing them fresh. Plus an insurance premium increase of $2,200 per year that will persist for 5 years. Total cost to you personally, roughly $20,000 when you account for everything. $20,000 because a previous homeowner stuck landscaping stakes in the ground and a current homeowner pointed at them and said, "That is the property line," and you had no reason to doubt her. Changes implemented after settlement. Every estimate now includes mandatory property survey verification. If the customer has a certified survey less than 5 years old with visible monuments, you work from it. If they do not have one, you require them to obtain one before installation commences. The customer pays for the survey, not you. Your contract now includes specific language. Customer warrants legal authority to install structures at specified locations. Customer is solely responsible for property boundary verification. Contractor relies on customer-provided boundary information. Has it prevented all risk? No. Nothing prevents lawsuits in this country. Someone can always file a claim over anything. But it has transferred the risk to where it belongs, with the property owner who knows, or should know, their own boundaries. By the end of year 7, your fence business was generating $1.6 million annually. 12 full-time employees across 4 installation crews, plus Stephanie and your office manager. Net profit after your salary? Approximately $240,000. But growth had stalled. You could feel the ceiling pressing down. And the constraint was not money, not demand, not materials. It was people. In the construction trades in 2026, the skilled labor shortage is not a news headline or an economic abstraction. It is your daily reality. More than 20% of U.S. construction workers are over 55 years old. They are aging out of physical labor, and the pipeline of younger workers entering skilled trades has not remotely kept pace with departures. This hits fence installation with particular force because the work lacks the career prestige of licensed trades. Nobody grows up wanting to be a fence builder. There is no HGTV show glorifying it. Young people who want to work with their hands gravitate toward electrical, plumbing, HVAC, trades with clear certification paths, union wages, and pension plans. Fence installation is the trade you stumble into, not the one you pursue. In Year 8, you attempted to expand from 4 crews to 6. You hired 8 new people over 8 months. Here is what happened. Hire 1. Good worker, couldn't be relied on. Called in sick every Monday for 3 consecutive weeks. Gone after 6 weeks. Total investment lost, approximately $4,200 in training time and reduced crew productivity. Hire 2. Showed up to a Tuesday morning job site intoxicated. Sent home immediately. Never returned. Never even collected his final paycheck. Hire 3. Excellent technical skills, but impossible personality. Argued with the homeowner in front of her children about where her own fence should be placed. You received the complaint call while the argument was still happening. Gone that afternoon. Hire 4. Quit after 1 week. Said the work was too physically demanding. You were paying him $24 an hour. Hire 5. Stole a Milwaukee impact driver, a box of stainless screws, and a laser level from the work trailer after hours. Caught on the warehouse security camera. Police report filed, charges pending. Hire 6. Terrified of the post-hole auger, would physically freeze when it engaged. Moved to a helper-only role, where he actually thrived. Loading trucks, cutting boards to length, mixing concrete. Partial success. Hire 7. Exceptional. Fast learner, great attitude, meticulous work. You were grooming him for crew lead within 6 months. Then the County Parks Department offered him $28 an hour, with full medical, dental, vision, pension, guaranteed weekends off, and no working in the rain. He left after 4 months. You could not blame him and told him so. Hire 8. Also good. Still with you today. 2 keepers out of 8 hires. A 25% success rate on hiring decisions. And that is not because you have impossible standards. You are looking for people who show up consistently, stay sober during work hours, do not steal, work hard in difficult conditions, and care enough about quality to check their own work before calling it done. These should not be rare traits. In the current skilled labor market, they are borderline unicorn characteristics. The answer to the people problem came not from finding better people, though you kept looking, but from making your existing people more productive through systems and technology. Not robots, not artificial intelligence doing fence installation, just practical, boring software that eliminated waste and friction from your daily operations. Job management software that scheduled crews optimally, tracked material deliveries, automated customer communication, and generated invoices the moment a job was marked complete. No more handwritten schedules on the whiteboard. No more forgotten invoices sitting in a folder for 3 weeks. No more customers calling to ask, "When is my fence going to start?" GPS fleet tracking on every truck. Not surveillance, you made that clear to your crews, but optimization. Route planning that reduced drive time between jobs. Delivery verification. Fuel usage monitoring that identified inefficiencies and saved $800 per month. Digital measurement tools that let Stephanie capture property dimensions with laser accuracy in 10 minutes instead of an hour with a tape measure. Upload to the estimating software. Generate a professional quote in 20 minutes total instead of the previous 2 hours. She went from 4 estimates per day to 7 without working longer hours. A CRM system that tracked every lead from first website visit through final payment, with automated follow-up sequences, satisfaction surveys, and referral requests. Your sales close rate climbed from 42% to 51% within 90 days of implementation. Total technology investment, $18,000 in year 9, including setup, training, and annual subscriptions. Return, 26% revenue increase with 0 additional headcount. Revenue in year 9, $2.4 million. Same 5 crews, same employee count, but every person was measurably more productive because the systems around them eliminated wasted time, redundant communication, and manual busywork. Let us talk about money. Your money. Where you actually stand after nearly a decade of building this business. Year 9 financials. Gross revenue, $2.4 million. Cost of goods, materials, $1.08 million. Gross profit, $1.32 million. 55% margin. Operating expenses, crew payroll, insurance, trucks, warehouse, marketing, admin, $890,000. Operating profit before your own pay, $430,000. Owner salary, $120,000. Net profit after your salary, $310,000. Total owner compensation, $430,000. That $120,000 salary plus the $310,000 profit distribution after tax planning with your accountant. Business equity, conservatively, 1.2 to 1.5 million, based on current small business sale multiples of 3 to 4 times net profit for established service companies with documented systems and transferable operations. $430,000 a year from building fences, starting from literally nothing. The median American household income in 2026 is around $84,000. You earn 5 times that. You have built an asset worth over $1 million that generates income whether you are physically present or not. You own your trucks outright. Your warehouse has 3 years remaining on the lease with favorable terms. Your team is trained, loyal, and productive. But here is what nobody tells you about earning this kind of money from a physical trade. You feel every dollar differently than someone in an office. You know what each dollar cost in physical labor, in risk, in stress, in relationships strained and meals missed. You can count the post holes that funded your daughter's college savings account. You know your monthly truck insurance equals exactly 37 fence pickets of labor. You also know, viscerally, in your bones, how fragile it still is. One catastrophic lawsuit, one economic downturn, one key employee leaving at the wrong time. The distance between 430,000 and 0 is measured in months, not years. There is no corporate safety net, no severance, no unemployment insurance that covers a business owner. That awareness never leaves, even at this level, even with systems and insurance and savings. It drives you, makes you careful, makes you better. There is a perception among people who have never held a tool in their hands that trades businesses like yours are simple, that fence installation is manual labor, post, rail, board, repeat. Anybody with a strong back and a truck could do it. This perception is so wrong, it is offensive to everyone who has ever tried. Running a successful fence installation company in 2026 requires you to simultaneously be a structural engineer, understanding load calculations, wind resistance, and soil mechanics, a materials scientist, knowing moisture content, wood grades, and coating chemistry, a surveyor, reading plats, interpreting easements, and identifying setback requirements, a project manager coordinating multiple crews, suppliers, inspectors, and weather variables, a financial analyst managing cash flow across brutal seasonal cycles, a human resources professional hiring, training, and retaining people in the tightest labor market in decades, a salesperson who reads customers, overcomes objections, and closes at above-average rates, a customer service expert who diffuses conflicts between neighbors, manages expectations, and handles complaints without losing composure, a de facto legal professional who understands contracts, liens, permits, and liability, and a marketer generating leads through multiple channels while managing a public reputation that one bad review can damage. All of these roles simultaneously every day, with no department to hand things off to, no HR team to call, no legal counsel on retainer, unless you pay for it, no marketing department, just you, making every decision, carrying every risk. The people who build million-dollar fence companies from nothing are among the most capable operators in American business. They just happen to work outdoors with their hands in dirt and weather and conditions that office workers would refuse to tolerate for an afternoon. It is July 2026. You are 36 years old, 10 years since that first post hole in your neighbor's backyard. Current state: revenue tracking 2.8 million annually, 5 installation crews, 16 employees, a 4,200 square foot warehouse, 7 vehicles, commercial and residential clients across a 60-mile radius, a brand that is recognized, a reputation that books 3 months in advance, a Google profile with 247 reviews averaging 4.9 stars. Net owner compensation this year approaching $500,000 when you include profit distributions. This year alone, your crews will install over 400 individual fence projects, 8 per week, 50 weeks per year. Each one custom measured, custom cut, custom built for a specific property, a specific family, a specific need. There is a 10-year-old golden retriever named Biscuit in a subdivision on the west side who has never escaped her yard because of a fence you built in year 3. A daycare center downtown with 47 children playing safely every afternoon behind commercial chain link your crew installed last spring. An elderly woman on Maple Street who told you at completion that she finally feels safe sleeping with her windows open because of the 6-foot privacy fence around her backyard. Fences are not glamorous. They do not make magazine covers or Instagram reels. But they are among the most fundamental structures in residential life. The boundary between public and private, between exposed and protected, between anxiety and peace. You have built 4,000 of them, each one still standing somewhere. doing its job quietly, invisibly, perfectly. At 36, with a nearly $3 million company, the question is no longer whether you can build a successful fence business. You did that. The question is, what do you do with what you have built? Options present themselves regularly. Private equity groups that aggregate home services companies. Larger regional contractors looking to bolt on a fence division. Franchise systems willing to pay a premium for a proven local operator with documented systems. The offers range from $1.2 million to $2 million for a full acquisition. You have considered selling, the financial freedom, the relief of transferring the weight to someone else, the chance to start something new, or start nothing at all. But every time you get close to that decision, the same thought stops you. This business is not done growing yet, and neither are you. The U.S. fencing market exceeds $20 billion in total annual revenue across more than 315,000 businesses. The top companies capture perhaps 5% of total market share combined. This is one of the most fragmented industries in America. Fragmentation means opportunity, specifically opportunity for operators who have built systems that scale. Your next move? Geographic expansion. A second location in a growing metro area 2 hours away. Same operational model, same systems, same manual, now 89 pages and counting. New market, new customer base, an additional 1.5 to 2.5 million revenue stream within 24 months if execution matches plan. It will require $200,000 in startup capital, a local operations manager who can run it independently, 6 months to establish the brand, a year to reach full profitability. Risks include management dilution, quality control at distance, and the universal challenge of replicating culture across locations. But you have done harder things than this. You survived a supply chain collapse, a lawsuit, employee theft, seasonal cash crises, and the slow, grinding work of building a reputation one fence at a time. If you're watching this right now thinking, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could start a fence company. Here is what a decade of building fences taught you. 1. Year 1 is tuition, not income. You will make expensive mistakes. Budget for them, expect them, learn from them aggressively. Do not let them convince you the business is failing. The mistakes are the business. They are how you develop judgment that cannot be taught any other way. 2. Price for profit from day one. Every dollar below your true cost comes directly out of your future, out of your retirement, out of your family's security. The market does not respect the cheapest option. It tolerates it temporarily. Price like a professional from the beginning. 3. Document everything before you need to. The day you hire your first employee, you need a system. Systems are documentation. Start writing your processes on day one, even when you are the only person who will read them. 4. Your reputation is worth more than any single contract. Walk away from bad customers. Walk away from jobs that feel wrong. Walk away from any situation where you would need to compromise quality to make the numbers work. 100 perfect fences build your name. 1 bad fence follows you for years. 5. Build real relationships, not transactions. Your supplier is a partner. Your insurance agent is an advisor. Even your competitors are potential allies. The overflow referrals, the shared knowledge, the industry connections that develop over years of mutual respect. 6. Protect your body. This work is physical, and it does not forgive neglect. Stretch, hydrate, use proper lifting mechanics, invest in ergonomic tools. See a doctor regularly. You need this body functional for decades more. Treat it like the critical business asset it is. 7. Pay your people well. Provide quality equipment. Train them thoroughly. Listen to their feedback. The people who build your fences are the business. Your trucks and tools are replaceable. Skilled, loyal people are not. 8. Save aggressively for seasonal cycles. 6 months of overhead in liquid reserves before you can sleep properly at night. It feels impossible in year 1. It is mandatory by year 3. 9. Never stop evolving. Composite materials are gaining market share. Smart fence technology with integrated sensors is emerging. Automated estimating through drone surveys and AI measurement is entering the market. The companies thriving in 2030 will be the ones adapting in 2026. 10. Remember the feeling. Standing in that first backyard, looking at straight cedar boards you set with your own hands. That feeling of ownership, of craft, of having built something real and permanent in a world full of temporary things. Hold on to it. It is the fuel that gets you through every hard day this business will deliver. And there will be many. You are the owner of a fence installation business. And that is your entire business. 10 years, 4,000 fences, nearly $3 million in annual revenue, 16 people whose families depend on the company you built from nothing. It started with one post hole, one rented auger, one neighbor who needed a fence and saw something in you that you had not yet seen in yourself. Everything you have today traces back to that moment, that decision, that willingness to bet on yourself when the math said you were crazy and the safe path said, stay where you are. The fences you build stand for decades. Long after the customers forget your name, long after the cedar weathers to silver, the lines you drew in the earth remain solid, straight, level, just like you built them. Let me tell you about something that happened in year 6 that nobody saw coming. Because your competitors are not always other fence companies. You woke up one morning to find that a national franchise, one of those operations that grew from 36 locations to over 240 in 3 years, had opened a branch 12 miles from your warehouse. They had a marketing budget that made yours look like pocket change. Google Ads campaigns that pushed your organic listings off the first page. Wrapped trucks everywhere, bright, clean, professional. A sales team of 3 people doing nothing but estimates. Their arrival cost you roughly 15% of your lead volume in the first quarter. Not because they were better. Their work was mediocre at best. You heard the complaints from customers who went to them first and came back to you for corrections. Crooked posts. Panels that rattled in the wind because the fasteners were cheap. Gates that dragged after 6 months because the posts were set shallow. But they were visible. They were everywhere. They had a brand presence that a solo local operator simply cannot match, dollar for dollar. Here is how you responded. And this is a lesson about playing a different game entirely. You did not try to outspend them on ads. That is a war of attrition you cannot win. Instead, you doubled down on what a franchise can never replicate: relationships, reputation, and craftsmanship at a level that justifies a premium price. You launched a referral program. Every completed customer got a handwritten thank you note. Yes, handwritten. Your wife helped with these. And a card offering 200 credit toward any future work for each referral that converted to a signed contract. Within 6 months, 34% of your new business came from referrals. Zero acquisition cost, except the discount, which you had already priced into your margins. You created a 5-year structural warranty on all installations, something the franchise explicitly refused to offer beyond 12 months. You made it prominent on your website, on your estimates, and in your sales conversations. Every time a customer compared your quote to the franchise's lower number, Stephanie would ask, "And what warranty do they offer on the posts?" The answer was always 1 year or less. Your 5-year warranty closed more deals than any ad ever could. You partnered with 3 local real estate agents who recommended you for pre-sale fence installations. When homes in your area went on the market, agents knew that a new fence from your company added measurable value, and they told their clients so. These referrals were high-quality, price-insensitive customers who wanted the job done right for the listing photos. Within 18 months, the franchise location closed. They could not sustain the overhead of 3 sales reps and an office lease with mediocre close rates and constant warranty callbacks. The brand moved on to a different metro area. You did not beat them by being bigger. You beat them by being better, and more specifically, by being so embedded in your community that no outside brand could dislodge you. That is the moat of a local service business. Not price, not scale, relationships. There is a moment in every business owner's life, one specific day, where you look around and realize that the thing you built has become something different than what you imagined. Not worse, not better, just fundamentally different from the picture in your head when you started. For you, that moment came on a Thursday in October of year 9. You were sitting in your truck outside a new residential development, waiting for a meeting with the HOA board about a community fencing contract worth $340,000. Largest single contract you had ever pursued. While you waited, your phone buzzed with 3 notifications simultaneously. Stephanie closed a $22,000 residential job. Crew 2 finished a commercial project a day early. And your office manager forwarded a voicemail from a local news station wanting to interview you for a segment about small business success stories in your area. 3 years ago, all 3 of those things would have required your direct involvement. Now they happened while you sat in a parking lot, without your input, without your presence, without you even knowing until the notifications arrived. That is the moment. Not when you crossed $1 million, not when you hired your 10th employee, not when you signed a commercial contract or survived a lawsuit. The moment your business truly became an asset was the Thursday afternoon when 3 significant things happened simultaneously, and none of them needed you. You walked into that HOA meeting with a confidence you had never felt before. Not because the contract was guaranteed, it was not, and you ultimately lost it to a competitor who bid 20% lower. They would regret that price, but that was their problem. But because your confidence came from something bigger than any single deal. You had built something that worked, something real and durable and functional, something that would outlast any individual job, any single client, any one employee. Let me give you complete honesty about the financial journey, year by year, because most content about starting a business shows you the highlight reel without the full picture. Year 1. Revenue $196,000. Net profit $31,000. Hourly equivalent 18 per hour. Working 65 plus hours per week. Body deteriorating. Relationship strained. Learning constantly. Year 2. Revenue $387,000. Net profit $112,000. First employee hired. First real truck purchased. First feeling of momentum. Year 3. Revenue $580,000. Net profit $148,000. 3 employees. 2 crews. Fired first employee. Learned that growth creates problems growth cannot solve. Year 4. Revenue $843,000. Net profit $189,000. Systems built. Pricing model locked. Operational manual written. Business became transferable. Year 5. Revenue $1.14 million. Net profit $213,000. Commercial pivot. Warehouse leased. Crossed the $1 million threshold. Discovered that $1 million in revenue means nothing if your overhead eats it alive. Year 6. Revenue $1.3 million. Net profit $198,000. Seasonal cash crisis. $73,000 in credit line debt over winter. Learned to build reserves. Profit actually decreased despite revenue growth because overhead scaled faster than margins. Year 7. Revenue $1.6 million. Net profit $240,000. Lawsuit. $20,000 total cost. Changed every contract, every process, every assumption about customer-provided information. Growth stalled at the people ceiling. Year 8. Revenue $1.9 million. Net profit $262,000. 8 hires, 2 keepers. Labor shortage became the defining constraint. Learned that you cannot hire your way to scale in a tight labor market. Year 9. Revenue $2.4 million. Net profit $310,000. Technology investment. Same headcount, 26% more output. Systems over heroes. Year 10. Revenue tracking $2.8 million. Net profit tracking $358,000. Total owner compensation approaching $500,000, including salary. Cumulative 10-year profit approximately $2.1 million. Cumulative 10-year stress immeasurable. Current business value $1.2 to $1.5 million. Total wealth created $3.3 to $3.6 million from zero starting capital. Those numbers are real. They are also unusual. The majority of fence companies never cross $500,000 in revenue. Most solo operators stay solo. Most multi-crew operations plateau at 3 or 4 crews. What separates the ones who break through from the ones who plateau is not talent or luck or market conditions. It is systems. It is discipline. It is the willingness to solve problems permanently instead of temporarily. It is the ability to hire slowly, fire quickly, price accurately, and save aggressively. And it is the stubbornness to keep going when March throws a supply chain collapse, a lawsuit, and an employee departure at you in the same month. And to come out the other side stronger, instead are smaller. Let me end with the truth that nobody puts on their company website or in their recruitment ads. Owning a fence installation business is not passive. It is not glamorous. It will not make you Instagram famous or get you invited to entrepreneur conferences. Nobody writes books about fence contractors. Nobody makes documentaries about post holes. What it will do is give you something that most people never have: complete ownership of your economic life. No boss deciding your worth. No corporation determining your ceiling. No HR department telling you what you have earned based on a salary band. Every dollar you make traces directly back to a decision you made, a system you built, a customer you served, a post you set straight. It will also test you in ways that office work never does. Physically, your back, your hands, your joints will remind you daily that this is a body-dependent profession. Mentally, the isolation of ownership, the weight of other people's livelihoods depending on your decisions, the constant, low-grade anxiety of a business that can be disrupted by weather, by a phone call, by 14 inches of incorrect property line. Emotionally, the pride of building something from nothing, mixed with the fear of losing everything you have built. Those two feelings coexist permanently. They never resolve. The pride fuels you forward. The fear keeps you sharp. Together, they create a state of alertness that becomes your default mode. Is it worth it? You know the answer already. You have been listening for the past 2 hours. You know what $500,000 a year looks like and what it costs to build. You know what a supply chain collapse feels like and how to survive it. You know what a lawsuit does to your sleep and what systems do for your sanity. It is worth it. Every post hole, every early morning, every late night doing invoices at the kitchen table, every crooked board you tore off and redid because your name is on the truck, every employee you trained and every one you had to let go, every customer who cried at the finished product and every one who left a 1-star review. All of it. Worth it. Because at the end of the day, at the end of 10 years, at the end of 4,000 fences, at the end of everything, you built something. Not just fences. A life. Your life. On your terms. With your hands. From nothing. And every single fence you ever build from this day forward will carry that story inside it. The story of someone who looked at a post hole and saw a future. Who took $1,200 of hardware store credit and turned it into a $500,000 annual income. Who survived everything the business threw at them and kept building. Post by post, board by board, fence by fence. That is your story, and it is nowhere close to over.